Texas holds more than Wild West tales and cowboy legends. It's also home to some of North America's oldest and strangest mysteries. Beneath its deserts, rivers, and plains lie traces of lost civilizations, unexplained carvings, vanished mines, and artifacts that challenge what we know about early life here. From ancient rock art to buried cities, Texas history hides secrets still waiting to be uncovered. The buried city of Panhandle Plains. Out in the windswept plains of the Texas Panhandle, there's a patch of quiet prairie that doesn't look like much at first glance. Low grass, a few scattered mesquite trees, the distant call of a hawk. But hidden beneath that unassuming landscape lies one of the most mysterious archaeological sites in the American Southwest, what locals call the Buried City. It's near the town of Perryton in Ochiltree County, and what's buried here has puzzled historians and archaeologists for more than a century. The name Buried City came from early ranchers who stumbled across strange mounds and rock outlines that seemed too regular to be natural. They described them as the ruins of a forgotten town, stone foundations, bits of pottery, and charred bones all mixed in the soil. The first to seriously investigate these ruins came in the early 1900s, when the Panhandle was still frontier country. What they found hinted at a civilization that didn't fit neatly into any known Native American group of the region. Archaeologists eventually uncovered the remains of about 100 stone structures spread across several acres, some arranged in streets or courtyards. What really caught everyone's attention were the fire pits, storage pits, and the fragments of decorated pottery scattered through the site. Whoever lived here wasn't just camping seasonally. This was a permanent settlement, organized, structured, and thriving long before Europeans set foot in Texas. Dating the site has been tricky. Carbon dating suggests that the buried city was occupied between 1200 and 1400 AD. That would make it roughly contemporary with the Mississippian cultures farther east, like Cahokia near St. Louis. But what's strange is how different it looks from those societies. The people here didn't build mounds or giant temples. They used stone, not wood, and their villages were arranged in compact clusters rather than the broad ceremonial layouts common elsewhere. In a sense, the buried city stands alone, a cultural island whose origins are still uncertain. Some researchers think the builders were ancestors of the modern Plains Apache, or perhaps part of the Antelope Creek culture, a group known from other sites across the Panhandle. The Antelope Creek people were skilled traders. They built with stone, farmed the river valleys, and hunted bison. But there's something distinct about the buried city that sets it apart from their other known villages. The scale, the density of construction, and the defensive layout suggest it might have been a regional hub, maybe even a proto-city for its time. One theory is that it served as a trading post on a network stretching from the Rocky Mountains to the Mississippi River. Archaeologists have found obsidian from New Mexico, shells from the Gulf Coast, and even copper artifacts that could have originated from the Great Lakes region. It paints a picture of people deeply connected to distant cultures, long before the concept of long-distance trade was thought to exist here. But there are other theories, more speculative and more mysterious. Some early settlers believed the site was evidence of a lost Old World colony. The regularity of the stonework reminded them of early European or even ancient Middle Eastern ruins. A few fringe writers in the 1920s claimed the buried city might have been built by survivors of the lost tribes of Israel, or even an outpost of an Atlantean people who crossed the sea ages ago. There's no evidence for that, of course, but such ideas captured the imagination of a region that was still wild and full of legends. Even today, when you walk through what's left of the site, it's easy to see why the place inspired so many stories. The walls still peek out from the soil in low, weathered outlines. You can stand on a rise and make out the faint geometry of old streets, rectangular patterns fading into the grass. The wind moves across the plains with a steady low hum, and it feels like you're standing in the echo of something ancient and forgotten. Archaeological digs in the 1930s and 1940s uncovered more of the story. Tools made from bison bone, grinding stones for processing corn, and fragments of cooking pots showed that the people here practiced both hunting and agriculture. They lived in a transitional world, half nomadic, half settled. They relied on the bison herds but also farmed the fertile river bottoms nearby. And then, for reasons no one fully understands, they vanished. By around 1450 AD, the buried city was abandoned. The houses fell into ruin, the fires went cold, and the prairie slowly reclaimed the land. There are no written records, no clear evidence of war or catastrophe. Some think climate change, perhaps a prolonged drought, forced the people to move. Others suspect that shifting trade routes or conflicts with neighboring tribes led to its decline. Whatever the cause, it was sudden enough that many structures remained intact beneath layers of wind-blown soil. The site today is protected as part of the Buried City Archaeological District, though it's not open to the general public to wander freely. Most of it sits on private land, and only licensed researchers can excavate there. Still, there's a small museum in Puritan that displays artifacts, stone tools, pottery shards, and reconstructions of what the homes might have looked like. It's one of those places where ancient history feels surprisingly close, like you could reach back 1,000 years and shake hands with the people who built those stone walls. If you visit the region, the landscape itself tells part of the story. The Canadian River cuts deep channels through the plains, creating hidden valleys where small streams feed patches of green even in the dry months. These valleys would have provided shelter, water, and fertile soil for crops. The same natural features that made the area livable also helped preserve its ruins. The dry climate kept organic material from rotting too quickly, and the steady winds buried and protected the remains over centuries. Standing there, it's not hard to imagine families gathered around fire pits, the smell of roasted meat and clay smoke in the air, children playing between the stone houses, traders arriving with goods from hundreds of miles away, and then slowly the sound fading into silence until only the wind remained. The mystery of the buried city isn't just about who built it, it's about how advanced and connected these ancient communities really were. For a long time, historians thought of the Great Plains as a kind of empty space between the great civilizations of Mexico and the mound builders of the Mississippi Valley. Sites like this prove otherwise. They show that complex societies lived and thrived here long before the frontier era, adapting to harsh conditions and building lasting structures that still endure under the grass. Today, archaeologists continue to re-examine old data with modern technology, using ground-penetrating radar, soil analysis, and 3D mapping to uncover details without disturbing the site. Every new discovery adds a small piece to the puzzle, but the core mystery remains. Why was such a well-established settlement suddenly abandoned? And how did its people fit into the broader web of North American history? If you ever find yourself in the Texas Panhandle, looking out over that wide, quiet land, it's easy to feel the weight of that question. Beneath your feet lies the memory of a lost world, one that still refuses to give up all its secrets. The Old Spanish Trail and Lost Mines. If you've ever driven across the sun-bleached deserts or rugged hill country of Texas, you've probably crossed paths with a section of the Old Spanish Trail, even if you didn't realize it. It's not a single road, but a web of ancient routes stretching across the Southwest, once used by explorers, missionaries, and traders. But behind the dry history of early travel lies a far deeper mystery: the stories of lost Spanish mines said to be hidden somewhere along this trail, buried beneath centuries of dust and legend. The Old Spanish Trail has roots that reach back to the 1500s, when Spanish conquistadors pushed north from Mexico in search of gold, silver, and souls to convert. Texas was vast and wild then, full of untamed rivers, rugged canyons, and dangerous tribes who didn't welcome strangers lightly. Yet the Spanish pressed on, convinced that riches lay waiting in the hills. They left behind scattered missions, crumbling forts, and whispers of mining camps that flourished briefly before vanishing without a trace. One of the most enduring legends is the lost San Saba mine, said to lie somewhere near Menard, west of Austin. In 1757, Spanish missionaries established the Santa Cruz de San Saba mission to convert the Lipan Apache. To protect it, soldiers built a nearby presidio, a fortified outpost. But it wasn't just religion that brought the Spaniards this far north. They had heard persistent rumors of silver deposits in the surrounding hills. Some say they found them. Others claim the mines were a hoax to justify expansion. According to the story, the Spaniards secretly mined and smelted silver here, hiding their operations from both rival tribes and Spanish authorities who demanded a share of the profits. But the mission's peace didn't last. Within a year, it was attacked by a massive force of Comanche and allied tribes. The mission burned, the priests were killed, and the survivors fled south. The supposed mine's location was lost with them. Over the next 2 centuries, prospectors, treasure hunters, and dreamers have searched those hills, convinced the lost mine still exists. They've found traces, old tunnels, bits of slag. Some believe the mine was real but collapsed and was buried after the massacre. Others argue that later settlers mistook natural formations for old workings. Either way, the legend refuses to die, and the San Saba tale isn't alone. Across Texas, similar stories appear like ghost towns on an old map. In the Davis Mountains, rumors persist of Jesuit gold caches hidden in remote canyons. Near the Pecos River, there's talk of a mine filled with ornate Spanish artifacts sealed behind rock falls. In central Texas, Old-timers still tell of a man named Jim Bowie. Yes, the same Bowie who later died at the Alamo, finding a Spanish silver vein somewhere along the San Saba River in the early 1800s. He supposedly took a few bars of refined silver as proof, but could never relocate the exact spot. Then there's the Los Almagres mine, which appears in Spanish records from the 1750s. The name means the Red Earth, and documents describe it as a source of rich ore near present-day Llano. Explorers like Bernardo de Miranda, and even the Marquis de Rubi, wrote about it. Some historians think Los Almagres might actually have been the real-life inspiration behind the San Saba legends. In the 1800s, prospectors rediscovered what they believed to be its tunnels, but after centuries of erosion and flooding, the passages had collapsed. The mystery of how much was really mined and what remains has never been solved. The pattern is always the same: a whisper of wealth, a flurry of activity, and then silence. Sometimes it's war or attack, sometimes it's secrecy or greed, and sometimes it's just nature. Texas weather can bury a mine faster than greed can uncover it. Flash floods, shifting sands, and time have erased much of the evidence, but that erasure only deepens the allure. Treasure maps, real and forged, circulated throughout the 1800s, often marked with cryptic symbols like crosses, circles. The pattern is always the same: a whisper of wealth, a flurry of activity, and then silence. Sometimes it's war or attack, sometimes it's secrecy or greed, and sometimes it's just nature. Texas weather can bury a mine faster than greed can uncover it. Flash floods, shifting sands, and time have erased much of the evidence, but that erasure only deepens the allure. Treasure maps, real and forged, circulated throughout the 1800s, often marked with cryptic symbols like crosses, circles. A rancher unearthed a carved stone cross marking a supposed mine entrance. Another swears he saw an ancient tunnel sealed with stacked stones deep in a canyon. Whether those tales are true hardly matters. The mystery has become part of the landscape itself. Archaeologists tread carefully with these legends. While a few Spanish-era mining operations are historically documented, especially around Presidio and El Paso, most lost mine stories mix a pinch of truth with a heap of folklore. Yet, every now and then, something tangible surfaces: a silver ingot stamped with a Spanish cross, a rusted pickaxe found far from any known settlement, a stone inscription that seems too deliberate to be natural. These fragments keep the question alive: how much of the legend might be real? What's certain is that the old Spanish trail itself was very real, and it connected more than just mining camps. It linked entire worlds, from the missions of San Antonio to the pueblos of New Mexico and the trading posts of California. Along the way, countless travelers left their mark. You can still find sections of the original trail cutting through the wilderness, sometimes marked by ruts worn into stone or weathered mission crosses standing in the middle of nowhere. Traveling these forgotten paths today feels like stepping back in time. In the heat of the afternoon, when the air shimmers above the desert floor, you can almost picture a caravan of mules trudging past, loaded with supplies and silver ore, the distant ring of hammers echoing off the canyon walls. And when the sun sets, painting the sky blood red, the land feels thick with memory, like it's holding on to secrets it's not ready to give up. Modern treasure hunters still roam the hills with metal detectors and ground-penetrating radar, hoping to find the lost mines. Most come away with nothing more than blisters and good stories. A few claim to have found traces of Spanish workings, but these claims usually fade into rumor. Even so, the belief persists that somewhere in the heart of Texas, buried beneath stone and sand, lies a fortune in silver, guarded by time, bad luck, and the ghosts of those who tried to find it before. But maybe the real treasure isn't silver or gold. Maybe it's the history itself, the reminder that Texas was shaped not only by cowboys and oilmen, but by explorers, missionaries, and dreamers who chased visions of wealth into the unknown. The old Spanish trail may be faded and forgotten in places, but it's still there if you know where to look: a thin line of mystery stretching across centuries. And somewhere along that line, beneath a lonely ridge or behind a sealed canyon wall, the earth may still hide the remains of the lost Spanish mines. The Paluxy River Dinosaur Tracks. In the quiet town of Glenrose, Texas, about an hour southwest of Fort Worth, the Paluxy River winds its way through a landscape of limestone bluffs and thick green forest. To most people, it looks like any other slow-moving Texas river, but when the water runs low, something extraordinary emerges from its bed. Imprinted in the rock are hundreds of fossilized tracks, frozen snapshots from over 100 million years ago. These are the Paluxy River Dinosaur Tracks, and they've stirred one of the most enduring mysteries in paleontology. The story begins in the early 1900s, when locals noticed strange depressions in the riverbed. They looked like giant footprints, three-toed impressions, some over a foot long. Word spread quickly. Farmers, school teachers, and curious townsfolk began exploring the river, finding track after track stretching for hundreds of feet. It was as if time itself had peeled back to reveal a prehistoric world right beneath their boots. By the 1930s, the Paluxy tracks had drawn the attention of scientists. Paleontologists identified them as the footprints of theropods, meat-eating dinosaurs like Acrocanthosaurus, and sauropods, massive long-necked plant-eaters similar to Brachiosaurus. The sauropod prints, broad and circular, often ran alongside deep-clawed impressions from predators. It was a paleontologist's dream, clear, perfectly preserved evidence of dinosaurs walking through what had once been a muddy floodplain during the Cretaceous period, roughly 1113 million years ago. But as often happens with extraordinary discoveries, mystery wasn't far behind. In the 1930s, reports began to surface of another kind of track, ones that didn't match any known dinosaur. Locals claimed to have found what looked eerily like human footprints pressed into the same rock layers as the dinosaur tracks. The idea exploded in popularity. Newspapers printed sensational headlines about man and dinosaur walking side by side. Amateur collectors rushed to the site. Some even chiseled out supposed human tracks and sold them to tourists. For many people, especially creationists who believed the Earth was only a few thousand years old, these alleged human prints were seen as proof that humans and dinosaurs had coexisted. The Paluxy River suddenly became a battleground between science and belief. A quiet Texas creek turned into a flashpoint in the debate over evolution. Scientists, of course, were skeptical. Many of the so-called human tracks turned out to be misidentified dinosaur prints, specifically elongated footprints made when dinosaurs walked on their heels in soft mud. Over time, erosion blurred their shape, making them look more human-like. Others were simply hoaxes, carved by locals hoping to cash in on the excitement. Still, a few tracks remained puzzling, not easily explained or dismissed. Even after decades of study, some impressions show strange, almost humanoid shapes that defy simple classification. That's where the mystery lingers. Were those odd prints genuine anomalies, rare missteps in the fossil record, or simply the result of erosion and wishful thinking? The scientific consensus today is clear. There's no evidence that humans ever lived alongside dinosaurs, but the Paluxy River continues to hold its secrets lightly, whispering just enough to keep curiosity alive. Standing in the riverbed, you can see the story unfold right beneath your feet. Long trails of sauropod tracks stretch across the rock like a prehistoric highway. Each step is perfectly spaced, each indentation a fossilized moment of movement. You can trace the path of a massive creature as it plodded through soft mud millions of years ago, maybe searching for food or crossing to higher ground before a flood. The detail is astonishing. You can see the ripple marks in the ancient sediment, and even claw marks where the creature's foot slid slightly as it walked. At some points, the tracks of predators crossed those of the herbivores. Scientists believe this may not have been an actual chase. More likely, the carnivores passed through the same muddy area later, but the sight of overlapping prints still stirs the imagination. It's hard not to picture that ancient drama, huge animals moving through steamy, fern-filled marshes, the air thick with humidity, insects buzzing, and the ground shaking under their weight. The Paluxy site became so famous that in 1972, it was designated part of Dinosaur Valley State Park, one of Texas's most remarkable natural landmarks. Today, visitors can hike through the park and stand directly inside the fossilized footprints. During dry seasons, the tracks are clearly visible in the riverbed. During wetter months, they often vanish under shallow water, only to reappear again like ghosts from another age. Scientists continue to study the area, using new techniques like 3D scanning and photogrammetry to document and preserve the tracks in detail. These efforts have revealed subtle information about dinosaur gait, herd behavior, and movement speed. In some cases, researchers have even identified individual trackways made by the same dinosaur walking at different speeds, essentially a 100-million-year-old motion study captured in stone. But beyond the science, there's something almost spiritual about the place. You can stand there ankle-deep in the same river that uncovered those tracks and feel a kind of time collapse. The wind moves through the trees, the water laps gently over the stones, and suddenly you're aware that the ground beneath you is holding memories older than humanity itself. And yet the mystery of the so-called human footprints never fully goes away. Even though the mainstream explanation is solid, some still insist that a few of the Paluxy tracks can't be explained as dinosaur in origin. They point to elongated impressions with toe-like shapes or faint arches as evidence. To this day, fringe researchers and curiosity seekers come to the park with cameras, plaster molds, and measuring tapes, hoping to find something that science missed. The park rangers are patient with such visitors. They remind everyone that most of the old human track claims have been thoroughly debunked. Still, they also admit there's always more to learn here. The Paluxy River continues to reveal new fossils and sediment layers every few years. What was once dismissed as a simple curiosity has grown into one of the most studied track sites on Earth. And that's the real beauty of it, the blend of mystery and discovery. It reminds us that even when explanations are clear, wonder doesn't have to vanish. The Paluxy River tracks tell a story not of humans and dinosaurs walking together, but of deep time, of shifting worlds, of the fragile evidence that connects us to the distant past. If you visit today, Glenrose has fully embraced its prehistoric fame. Dinosaur sculptures dot the roadside, local diners sell Jurassic burgers, and the small museum near the park displays casts of some of the most famous tracks. Yet when you step down into the actual riverbed, away from the crowds, it still feels quiet and ancient. The stone holds the weight of creatures long gone, their steps imprinted forever in Texas limestone. And whether you see it as proof of science, a doorway to mystery, or simply a breathtaking piece of natural history, one thing is certain: the Paluxy River doesn't just preserve the tracks of dinosaurs, it preserves the human desire to understand, to question, and to stand in awe of the impossible. The Alibates Flint Quarries. In the wide open plains of the Texas Panhandle, where the land seems to stretch endlessly under a massive sky, there's a place where people have been coming for more than 13,000 years. Not for gold or silver, not for oil or water, but for stone. Hard, glassy, rainbow-colored stone that gleams when the sunlight hits it. This is Alibates Flint Quarries National Monument, one of the most extraordinary and least understood archaeological sites in North America. At first glance, it doesn't look like much. The quarries sit above the Canadian River, surrounded by the red cliffs and dry mesas of what's now Lake Meredith National Recreation Area. But if you walk the land carefully, you start to notice the clues: pits, depressions, and scattered shards of flint covering the ground. To the trained eye, it's clear this was no random deposit. This was an ancient industrial complex, an open-air workshop where countless generations of people came to dig, hammer, and craft tools. The flint found here isn't ordinary rock. It's a form of high-quality quartz known as agatized dolomite, created when minerals from ancient seabeds crystallized deep in limestone. The result is a stone that's both beautiful and practical, tough enough to hold a sharp edge, yet smooth enough to shape with precision. Its colors range from milky white to deep maroon, streaked with reds, blues, and purples. Archaeologists have found Alibates flint points and blades scattered across the Great Plains, stretching from Colorado to Louisiana. It was the steel of the prehistoric world. The people who came here weren't just local tribes passing through. Evidence shows that groups traveled hundreds of miles to reach this spot. As early as 11,000 BC, Clovis hunters, some of the first known inhabitants of North America, used Alibates flint to make spear points for hunting mammoths and giant bison. Thousands of years later, when the megafauna were gone, new cultures continued to return. They built camps, lit fires, and left behind the remains of their work: flakes of stone, hammerstones, and unfinished tools still lying where they fell. When archaeologists began studying the site in the early 20th century, they were stunned by its scale. There are more than 700 quarry pits spread across the mesa tops, some as deep as 10 feet. Each pit represents countless hours of labor, digging through layers of limestone to reach veins of flint, then carefully breaking it free without shattering it. Around the pits are the debris fields, millions of flakes and fragments, the byproducts of toolmaking that now form a kind of ancient mosaic over the landscape. Yet what makes Alibates more than just a quarry is how little we truly understand about the people who worked here. The site doesn't fit neatly into any single cultural category. It was used by many different groups over thousands of years, from Paleo-Indians to later Plains tribes like the Antelope Creek people around 1100 AD. The Antelope Creek culture, thought to have built stone slab houses near the Canadian River, may have operated Alibates as a trade hub, supplying flint tools to communities across the southern plains, but no one knows exactly how organized it was. Was this a seasonal gathering place where tribes met to quarry and trade, or was it more permanent, a sacred ground passed down through generations? Some archaeologists think the quarries had spiritual importance. In many Native American traditions, stone isn't just a resource, It's alive, filled with the spirit of the earth. At Alibates, that belief seems to linger in the air. Even now, many indigenous visitors treat the site with quiet reverence, leaving small offerings or pausing in silence before entering the quarry fields. The deeper mystery lies in the scope of its influence. How far did Alibates Flint actually travel? Traces of it have been identified in archaeological sites hundreds of miles away, sometimes showing up alongside obsidian from New Mexico or copper from the Great Lakes. That suggests a vast prehistoric trade network stretching across the continent. The people who mined here weren't isolated, they were part of something much larger, a web of exchange and communication that connected distant cultures long before written history. When the Antelope Creek people vanished around the 1400s, the quarries fell quiet for a while. Later, Comanche and Apache tribes passed through the area, likely aware of the stone's value, though they used different sources for tools and weapons. By the time Spanish explorers reached the Panhandle, Alibates had already entered the realm of legend. Ranchers in the 1800s found strange circular pits on the mesas and assumed they were old buffalo wallows. It wasn't until the 1920s that archaeologists realized these were man-made quarries, traces of an industry that predated civilization itself. Walking through the site today, it's easy to feel the age of it. The ground crunches under your boots with bits of flint that have lain there for thousands of years. Some flakes are sharp enough to cut your hand even now. The air is dry, carrying the faint smell of sage and dust. From the top of the mesa, you can see miles of rolling plains fading into the horizon. It's a quiet, haunting beauty, the kind that makes you aware of how long people have been working, surviving, and creating on this land. The National Park Service protects the area now, and access is limited to guided tours. Rangers lead small groups through the quarry fields, explaining how ancient workers would dig narrow trenches, then chip out flint nodules with hammerstones. They point out flakes lying exactly where they were dropped, some more than 1,000 years old. Unlike most archaeological sites, Alibates is still full of untouched artifacts. Because it's been preserved so carefully, it offers rare insight into how early people interacted with their environment. But what's truly fascinating is how modern technology is beginning to reveal the site's secrets. Using drone mapping and geochemical analysis, researchers are tracking how Alibates flint spread across North America. Each deposit has a unique chemical signature, like a fingerprint, so scientists can identify where a tool originated. This means that when they find a flint spearhead in Oklahoma or Kansas, they can sometimes trace it directly back to a specific quarry pit in Texas. Every new discovery strengthens the theory that Alibates was a central hub in a massive prehistoric trade network. Yet even with all this knowledge, mystery still hangs over the place. We can map the quarries and analyze the stone, but we'll probably never know the names, languages, or beliefs of the people who worked here. Their voices are gone, but their craftsmanship remains silent and sharp as ever. If you visit Alibates Flint quarries today, it doesn't feel like a ruin, it feels alive, humming with the memory of human hands. The flint still gleams in the sun, and the air still feels charged with history. Rangers sometimes say that at sunset, when the light hits the stone just right, the whole mesa glows with color, red, purple, and gold, like a reflection of the people who once came here to shape it. There are no temples or monuments here, no towering ruins or inscriptions. Just the earth, the stone, and the quiet persistence of human effort stretching back to the edge of time. And in that simplicity lies something profound, a reminder that even in the harshest places, people found beauty, purpose, and connection. In a way, the mystery of Alibates isn't about what's missing, it's about what remains. A quarry turned into a time capsule, a place where the story of ancient America is still written, one flake of flint at a time. The Lubbock Lake landmark. If you drive just a few miles north of downtown Lubbock, Texas, you'll come across what looks like an ordinary patch of high plains, open grass, scrub brush, and shallow gullies carved by wind and rain. But beneath this quiet landscape lies one of the most significant archaeological sites in North America. The Lubbock Lake landmark is a place where the layers of Texas history quite literally stack up, thousands of years of human presence recorded in the soil itself. What makes this spot so strange and so fascinating is that it shouldn't exist at all. The high plains are usually bad at preserving ancient remains. The winds are too strong and the soil too loose. But here, a natural spring once flowed through the valley, creating a rare pocket where silt, bone, and artifacts settled and stayed. The Lubbock Lake landmark is a place where the layers of Texas history quite literally stack up, thousands of years of human presence recorded in the soil itself. What makes this spot so strange and so fascinating is that it shouldn't exist at all. The high plains are usually bad at preserving ancient remains. The winds are too strong and the soil too loose. But here, a natural spring once flowed through the valley, creating a rare pocket where silt, bone, and artifacts settled and stayed. Over the centuries, those layers built up into a kind of time capsule, a continuous record of human life stretching back nearly 12,000 years. Archaeologists have called Lubbock Lake a Rosetta Stone of the southern plains. When excavations began in the 1930s, people thought they might find old tools, or perhaps the remains of buffalo hunts. Instead, they uncovered something astonishing: stone spear points lying alongside the bones of Ice Age animals like mammoths and giant bison. That discovery helped confirm that humans had lived in Texas far earlier than once believed, right alongside these extinct creatures. The first big finds came during the Dust Bowl years. Locals noticed bones sticking out of the eroded banks of Yellowhouse Draw, the shallow waterway that runs through the site. At first, some thought they belonged to modern cattle, but as the excavation deepened, it became clear these bones were ancient, long-extinct species buried beneath layers of sediment. And near those bones were unmistakable signs of human activity: fire pits, chipped stone tools, and spear points of a style now called Folsom and Clovis. These early discoveries changed more than just the story of Lubbock. They changed the story of the entire continent. Before this site, many believed humans hadn't reached North America until about 6,000 years ago. The evidence from Lubbock Lake proved otherwise. People were here during the last ice age, hunting massive animals across the open plains of what's now West Texas. But that's only the beginning. As archaeologists continued digging through the decades, they found layers from nearly every major period of prehistoric and early historic Texas life. You can walk a few feet at the landmark and move across thousands of years in an instant, from Ice Age hunters to early bison herders, from Native American settlements to the remains of 19th century ranching. Few places in the world preserve that kind of unbroken timeline. There's also a quiet mystery here that still puzzles researchers. The site seems to show periodic disappearances of human activity, long stretches where people stopped using the area entirely, even though the water source remained. Then, centuries later, life would return, and the layers would begin building again. Why? No one's sure. Some believe climate change or drought cycles pushed people away. Others think there might have been social or spiritual reasons that made the site off-limits for a time. Whatever the cause, these gaps leave eerie silences in the archaeological record, places where time just seems to pause. Another strange feature is the spring itself. For thousands of years, it provided life to animals and humans alike, but at some point in the early 1900s, the spring mysteriously stopped flowing. Even with all our modern technology, no one has fully explained why. Some believe heavy ranching and irrigation upstream changed the water table. Others suspect a deeper geological shift beneath the plains. The result was that a once living waterway, central to 12,000 years of history, suddenly went dry, sealing the final chapter of the story underground. Visitors today can walk the site through a network of trails and overlooks. It's quiet, open, and strangely peaceful, a place where you can feel the scale of time pressing down in layers. The deeper you look into the Lubbock Lake landmark, the more it feels like the land itself has memory. Each era leaves behind its traces, then buries them under dust and time. Some of those traces are easy to interpret, others not so much. For instance, archaeologists have found unusual stone arrangements that don't seem purely functional. Were they markers? Ritual sites? Early attempts at navigation or storytelling carved into the earth? The evidence is too faint to be certain. But it's clear that this valley meant something special to the people who kept returning over the millennia. What makes the landmark even more unusual is how it's still active. Excavations continue every summer, often led by Texas Tech University. Students and scientists work under the blazing West Texas sun, peeling back the layers inch by inch. They still find new things almost every year, not just tools or bones, but traces of fire pits, pollen samples, and tiny clues about changing climates. Every discovery adds another piece to a story that's far from finished. There's also something humbling about standing there in person. When you look out over that broad valley, it's hard to imagine the world that once existed here: mammoths grazing near the water, bison thundering across the horizon, and humans just learning how to survive in a shifting, untamed land. Then you look closer and realize you're standing right where it all happened. The same soil, the same sky, the same wind. Yet for all its science and history, Lubbock Lake still holds a quiet mystery that can't be measured in data or radiocarbon dates. It's the feeling that you're standing at a crossroads between worlds, the ancient and the modern, the visible and the buried. Time moves differently here. The layers under your feet remind you that our own lives are just another thin slice of something much bigger, still unfolding. Today, the Lubbock Lake landmark is protected as both a research site and a public preserve. Trails wind through the excavation areas. Interpretive signs tell the story of early humans, and the small museum offers glimpses of what's been found. But even with all that, there's still an air of mystery. The spring remains dry, and some locals say that on quiet nights, you can still hear faint echoes, the distant rush of water that once ran through the draw, carrying with it the memory of every life that ever passed through this place. Standing there, you get the sense that this isn't just an archaeological site, it's a conversation across time. And while we may never know all the stories buried beneath the plains, the land continues to whisper them, grain by grain, to anyone willing to listen.